Hi folks, I'm Tony Ulrich, and this is the next step, the second step in the lesson sequence on those full hand chords and their inversions. Subtitle is Remember the Parallels. Now that subtitle is what we're going to cover here in this second section. Please study this hard because this is kind of the most important part of this series. So let me play, and you'll notice that I'm using all full hand chords, what I call them full hand chords. And these are part of what I call the walking bass section. When you look at the table of contents, you'll see walking bass. Well, this is just a sample of what that's going to be available to you as a subscriber. Okay, full hand chord and inversions. And two, and. Oh boy, that's fun. That kind of playing's over in the walking bass series of lessons. Now, back to the lesson at hand. Remember the parallels. Okay, let's pick up here from the previous lesson, the G chord, GBD. GBD. Okay, those three notes we know are the three notes that make up the G chord, GBD. Now, you watch and study this. If you don't know how to do this, give it some air, give it time, and then all of a sudden a big light will come on about chords. GBD. Okay, now the first thing is the parallels. Ringing a little on the 4th string and 1st string. Ringing a little. Okay, now, first thing you can do is, if you're not familiar with them, get your fingers on the fretboard and just do a 4-1 pinch grab and get comfortable with walking up and down the parallels. Now, that won't take long. Okay, if you cradle up and you fret the parallels at 5 in the G position, you'll find, if you kind of think, that the little finger actually frets a little bit ahead of the ring finger. You will get to where, by just doing what you're seeing me do right now, you'll get to where you'll be an expert at the parallels in a couple of weeks or less. Parallels. Okay, now let's take the open G chord, GBD, and your next step is find those three notes with the parallels. So this is easy. G is at 5, B is at 9, and D is at 12. Okay, now as we start to form those full hand chords, I'm sure most of you will be familiar with them. Let's go back. Parallels at 5 is G. Parallels at 9 is B, the 3rd step in the G scale. And then parallels at 12 is D, the 5th step in the G scale. So we now know where the parallels are in relationship to the three notes that make up the G chord. G at 5, B at 9, D at 12. Now your next step is get your fingers on the fretboard and just do pinches, 4 and 1. G, B, D. G, B, D. G, B, D. Now those parallels correspond to the three positions of the movable major chords that we're going to be learning. GBD is open, That is your G chord, your G triad, 3 notes. And now you have your parallels, G, B, and D. Big lesson. May seem simple, but it's really important to you. Okay, this is maybe a break point in the subscriber pause line in learning through these lessons. Take a look at that, and then when you're ready, just continue on with this lesson. Okay, now, the next thing we do is we build and show you the 3 major chords. Let's start at G, parallels at 5. Parallels, that's our term. That's your term, my term from now on. Parallels at 5. Now lay the middle finger down, 3rd string 4, index 2nd string 3, and I'm sure most of you know this chord. Okay, now what's important here is the names of the notes. G, B, D, and G. So when you fret our parallels at 5 and you lay down the middle and the index, you get G chord. I'm sure most of you know that. But have you learned the names of the notes? G, B, D, G. This chord fingering, this full hand chord fingering, is what I call the movable major chord with the root or the name, the tonic, the name, or G in the bass on the 4th string. Now here's a neat surprise. If you just open up, those open notes are 3, 2, 1, 5. So your open G chord in the 5th string is now represented in these 4 notes fretted. G, B, D, G. Okay, movable major with the root, the tonic, or the name of the chord in the bass. And also it's on the 1st string too. Remember, they move parallel. Okay, G, B, D, G. Okay, that's first. Now, let's go to the next step. Go back to your parallels at 5 and take them up to 9, which is B, the 3rd step in the G scale. And this is the chord fretting that you lay the middle down on the 2nd and the index down on the 3rd. They just kind of switch strings, don't they? Okay, now this, the 2nd one, is the movable major with the 3rd or the B note in the bass. And the notes are B, D, G, and B. So here is another movable full hand chord, but the inversion creates the notes in the order of B, D, G, B, but you're still doing G. Okay, parallels at 9, middle on 2nd, index on 3rd. So this has the 3rd step in the G scale, the 5th step in the G scale, and the root, the G on the 2nd string, and the little finger on the 1st. I'm blocking my hand. Nobody's perfect. There it is. Now, that is the 2nd movable major number 2 with the 3rd in the bass. Okay, now this could be a pause point for you, and let's go to the next step. Okay, now the next step is simply to talk about briefly these 2. So go back to your parallels at 5 and fret the movable major with the root in the bass. Now, the lesson here is you don't take the whole chord up when you shift. We're in G. Now take your parallels to 9 and shift the other 2 fingers to the 2nd fretting. And then when you go back to your parallels at 5, move only the parallels. And then change fingers, and you're back in G. Now, for most of walking bass and chording backup, you will use these 2 frettings. The 3rd fretting coming up is used primarily for intervals such as the high bar section, and we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, right now, quick review. Parallels at 5, G, B, D, G. Slowly up to 9, shift, B, D, G, B. So whenever you practice this, wherever you are, that same relative shift creates the same chords in a different inversion. G, 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 take the parallels up, then shift, take the parallels back, then shift. And those two you will use more in walking bass. Chop licks, the simple backup licks, you'll use these two more than any of the others, including the third, which we'll cover next. Okay, now the final step is go back to your parallels at 5 and go to 9 as B, and then go on up to 12 as D. Okay, the third and the final is essentially a bar, and it's hard to lay the finger down. The best visual is just to drop the thumb in the back of the neck and bar with the index. Okay, there's not many songs or sequences where you'll use this full bar. Some instrumentals you'll use and you'll use the 2 finger for high bar, the section on high bar. So all of that is normally done out of this 3rd fretting. So now this, if you bar all the way across, it's D, G, B, and D. So this bar fretting at 12 is your open tuning. D, G, B, and D. There's your open G tuning. And up at the 12th fret is the 3rd. This is the movable major chord with the fifth step in the scale, in the bass. Okay, now remember, we don't use this one as a full bar very often. High bar back up. And some we'll use a bar for some easy stuff in the middle of the neck. But for the most part, we will not use the full bar fretting for anything heavy as far as a full hand. And that's remember the parallels. Now let's go back and let's do a quick verbal review. Parallels at 5 is G, parallels at 9 is B, parallels at 12 is D. The 3 notes in your G chord. With your parallels at 5, movable major number 1 with the root, the tonic, the name of the chord in the bass. Movable major number 2 is go up to the B note, the 3rd step in the G scale. B, D, G, B. And then move on up to the full height and just shift to the index. D, G, B, D. Rarely we use that as a full chord. Okay, now remember the parallels. The parallels are going to be your friend in chorded type backup. And the parallels help you shift and help you play better up in the middle of the neck. So, remember the parallels. We covered everything that you need to know about the full hand chords and inversions in 2 rather long steps. So keep your music fun, and let's keep going with the banjo tap.